when you're providing a really good experience and you're able to control the things that you can control, because there's a lot of things about the migration we can't control. That's out of our hands. There's a genuine sense of, I care about you and I care about your family. Why would people not want to come out back? Because we really do.
Sustainability and staying power is all about relationship building. We all have never questioned that. All three of us just put the most emphasis on that, and it's worked really, really well.
I mean, like, we've had people that have been going through hard things that have shown up in Northwest Arkansas for a weekend because they don't know where else to go.
Wow.
That's not...
They'll go hang out with their duck guide.
What is waterfowl, and then what is Fowlco? Maybe, one of y'all kind of dive in, and then y'all kind of each introduce yourselves here too. Thanks for coming on with me and Nick this morning.
You bet. You bet. You want to go first?
Yeah, man. I'm John David Blagg. And go ahead.
My name's Aaron Seifritz.
I'm Josh Teff.
Yeah, and we started Fowlco Outfitters. So your question, what is waterfowl?
Yep.
So, ducks, geese, any migratory bird that migrates from Canada all the way down to the United States. And that's what we hunt at Fowlco, primarily ducks and geese in north central Oklahoma.
And so y'all are all Northwest Arkansas guys. Though.
Yeah, live.
Yeah, live in Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah.
And so, just so people know who aren't, who don't hunt birds or haven't ever done it before, why can't you do it here? Why is it not very popular here in Northwest Arkansas? Why are most of the spots in, central, east Arkansas or now in Oklahoma, which is kind of a newer thing, right?
Well, great question. You got flyways, and generally your flyways, like the Mississippi River Flyway, which comes down through Stuttgart. Everybody knows Arkansas is duck capital of the world. And you got your Central Flyway, which it's kind of split by the Ozark Mountains. We don't have great habitat here. Water's clear, fast moving. You don't have wetlands. You don't have corn, grain, no farming, no ag. So the flyways are generally, you go 2 hours this way, 2 hours that way, you can find good duck and goose hunting. But generally in this area, this is more deer and turkey country than it is, and black bear country than it is duck waterfowl country for sure. But,
sure.
Yeah, we're kind of between flyways here.
Yeah.
So there's 4: Pacific, Central, Mississippi, and then the East Coast. And everything in between those, if you're like draw a line in the middle, you're probably going to have a hard time finding concentrations of ducks and geese in those areas. Whereas if you're in those veins, and there's a whole map that DU and U.S. Fish and Wildlife put together that, they've tracked birds over eons, show right where they go. Most of them from, either coast of Canada, it typically just funnels down into the Mississippi Valley, and then you'll have, typically less birds that sort of winter, string off as the mass majority, go to the Mississippi Valley. So it's interesting stuff, and they band them and put tracking collars on them to, kind of see where how those patterns emerge and how habitat affects it and all that stuff.
It's really cool, like in Arkansas, South Arkansas being the duck capital of the world, a lot of that stems from Southeast Arkansas. Like Osborne Labs down at UAM, putting the backpack GPS tracking devices on these ducks and geese and watching them. You can pull up actually on your computer. You can pull up and see where that duck is right now and in the stage of the migration, which is really cool. And it gives them, like Josh said, a lot of really cool information about where exactly they're nesting, where they're summering, and then, being able to track them all the way down. It's a wild animal, man. Like, to do that every year, the resilience that they have, and think about the miles and stuff. It's pretty special that we get to take part in that.
And you grew up in that world, right?
Yeah. I mean, really, Aaron and I both did. My dad, we farm in Southeast Arkansas. So in the, not in Stuttgart. So we were in Dumas.
Yep.
And still are. My family still farms. And my dad was a duck guide. So I saw that my whole life. And you can ask these guys, he's one of the best. If he walked in this room, everybody wants to hear my dad and be around him because he's just that guy. So I got to watch the best do it and entertain and, it was pretty cool to now. He's proud of what we've built, and what God has laid before us, and we're just taking steps.
What was one of your first memories with your dad that you remember just falling in love with the sport, with the everything?
I can remember it like it was yesterday. I shot my first pintail, and I don't know how I remember this. I don't remember really much at 5, but I was 5, and I was shooting a 20 gauge that was not a youth 20 gauge. And back then we had waders, but they were not the technology we have today. They were rubber. The people that are listening that might remember the old red ball waders of lacrosse, but it was just thick rubber or canvas.
Yeah.
And they didn't make youth sizes. So he would get the smallest size, and then he would duct tape the legs. So he would pull it up, fold it, and duct tape so my feet didn't come out.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when I killed my first duck. It was a big full sprig pintail, and I was with my Uncle Bo and my dad, and first time I even shot at a duck. I think I just got super lucky because I still do miss a lot, but it ended up getting to, shoot that duck with my dad and uncle. And then I've just been hooked ever since. In one of our rice fields. That's amazing. And and I guess all across the room here, when did the idea for Fowlco come in? You were a home builder for a while, and then, y'all been doing different things too. When you were little, JD, did that kind of start for you? And then, you, Aaron, too, and Josh, and what's the...
our whole path to that was different. I think the thing that, was most how we came together at a stage in life. I had worked for hunting lodges in Stuttgart, a place called Wildlife Farms for 12, 15 years. Been around that and learned a lot about waterfowl culture and the hospitality side of it from a family, the Barnetts, that were there, that ran the place forever. And so eventually I started having kids, and at some point it was kind of like a little thing in the back of my head, was kind of doing my own thing. And then through the course of time, got put together with John David and Josh. My dad actually had a relationship with John David's dad before I met John David on the beach in Seaside, Florida. And my father trained a couple dogs for Josh along the way. So, and we discussed Fowlco the first time at Whole Hog Barbecue on North College about this time of year. In 2017?
Hold on. You got to
get it the full.
Just a little bit of it.
Well, I had been thinking about it a bunch. People have been coming to me for years asking me if I knew Josh and saying that we had similar goals and aspirations as far as like what we were doing. And being in Northwest Arkansas, that's not like a very common thing versus other parts of the country that are a little more rural.
Real quick. As you listen to Aaron tell this, because he tells it really well, just you have to think about the fact that God is behind the scenes, just like through other people, like, hey, you've got to meet Josh. Hey, Aaron and I randomly meeting each other on the beach in Seaside, Florida.
No way.
Like
that wasn't set up.
No, true story.
So it's just to see God and weaving all this together is pretty awesome.
But Josh's name was always in the back of my brain. I can remember even was it Greenhead Magazine or something? Mm-hmm. There was a ad in there, a place you worked before, and I remember clearly thinking like, well, he's got his fingerprint on, what's growing and what's happening. And I can remember that sticking in my brain. I looked up John David. I was sitting on a beach in Seaside, Florida, had a chronolite in my hand. My now wife, then fiance, I believe, walking on the beach. John David's little girl was holding his finger. She was probably 1 year old about that time. And Lila. And then he had a little curly tail pig hat on, and I hit my wife on the shoulder, and I said, well, that's a rice farmer's kid. That's exactly what I said, because I was always like hunting for my next duck hole, you know what I mean? I was like, he has access to a duck hole. And so I said, Woo Pig, how's your duck season? And jumped up out of my chair, and we realized pretty quickly that our dads knew each other and had a history together. And we realized we lived down the road from each other, and that we knew
pretty crazy
50 of the same people. I don't know, fast forward 5 or 6 years, John David and I's relationship, we're turkey hunting. Anybody knows me, I kind of black out when I turkey hunt. There's really not a lot going through my brain other than like what's in front of me, which is part of the reason I love it, because I can just step inside nature and not be anywhere else. But
and Aaron and I had been talking about doing this.
We'd been like poking around the idea here and there, and it was like on front of my brain. And turkeys were coming down John David's barrel, and
we had 3 turkeys gobbling.
I hit him on the shoulder, and I say, John David, text Josh Teff right now, because I knew that they had met once, had each other's numbers, and I said, text him right now, see if he wants to go get lunch with us next Wednesday. And John David looked at me and said, what are you doing? What are you doing? I said, text him right now. And he was like, put his gun down, and he like showed it to me. Okay, I texted him, let's go ahead. Let's go these turkeys, and next thing I know, he texts back. John David holds, okay, yeah, we're on for Wednesday. Throws his phone down. We go back to turkey hunting.
Relax.
Right. And we meet for a plate of barbecue and share ideas and thoughts. And, man, a lot of things I think just right out of the gate align for all 3 of us as far as the level of hospitality, like how we wanted to be as a group, 3 guys that cared, knew the market, and we knew our client base, what we want our client base to be.
In your mind, was it a business at the time, or was this hey, we're creating a hobby spot for us to, like, what was the thought there when all y'all were meeting together?
No, I mean, I don't think we ever dreamed that like the growth would be as explosive, but that was the power of all 3 of us coming together. We each brought something to the table. We each brought a network of duck hunters to the table. We each brought experience to the table. And we outweigh each other, as far as like Josh is really great at things that I'm not. John Dave's great at things that I'm not, vice versa. We all just add to the table, and somehow, some way over, 8-9 years now, we've managed to never have a blow up argument and work through our differences and work together. But as far as the explosiveness of it, I don't think we ever, even at that point, could have ever even imagined that would have become what it be, because there was really nothing out there to really like a blueprint on how to do this. We had exposure to Arkansas duck culture and the commercial side of it, running people through there with business. But the whole thought and feel of taking that mentality to Oklahoma, that hadn't been done really at that point. There's quite a few lodges now, but at that point there was really nothing to go off of. Like, will this work? How do we gather enough land to make that effective over there in a place that doesn't have the resources that we're used to? And then one thing I really remembered more than anything is, location. That's anything in business. Josh, at the very end of that meeting, opened up his laptop and said, I don't know much, but I know I want to go here. And where he touched that laptop screen was real close to where our lodge is today.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that certainly.
And had you been there before, Josh? Or,
Yeah. So, our whole situation is like a whole series of cliches. It really is. It's like,
hold that mic up just so I make sure.
It's timing is everything, and it ain't what you know, but who you know, and God's grace and favor. Those 3 things are like what built our whole situation. So they, unbeknownst to them, 16-17 was the last season you had at Wildlife Farms, right?
That's about right, yeah.
So he had, Wildlife Farms, where Aaron was, had sold to someone, so they're no longer running hunts there. 16-17, I had given my resignation at the place I was at in February of 17.
With this plan in mind?
I'd never even met Aaron. I'd never even met Aaron at this point.
Okay.
So years before, like they told you, they meet on the beach. And then JD and I had met at a barbershop right here.
The Clint's barbershop right here.
That's a community right there too.
What was it? In September, I think, or October of 16. And then I invited him to hunt at the place that I was guiding at the time in Tulsa, just outside of Tulsa. And we just hit it off. And so that's how our relationship started. So we hadn't known each other for 6 months.
We both went to the same church and always had people that assumed that I was close with Josh, and people assumed that he was close with me. And I was like, I keep hearing this. I've never met this dude, but I know who he is because Jeremy, when we started Puritan, I was part of Puritan on Dixon when we started with Richard and Kevin and John Allen, and his brother was doing artwork for us, like design work for Puritan.
Okay.
And we were at some Puritan release party, and his brother, I knew that his brother hunted, and his brother was like, yeah, I know, like, you want to talk to me about hunting? You've got to meet my brother. And I was like, again, this is another person saying I've got to meet your brother. So.
So Jeremy gets credit for all of our, he's done all the graphic work. Everything that we have, stickers,
he's the best.
Website, hats, T-shirts, anything that's graphic, in our brand. He's basically built the brand, essentially. so we end up meeting, and then fast forward to April, and JD texts me out of the blue when they're turkey hunting, and we go meet, and we kind of left that conversation with an idea. They spawned the idea, and to be honest, like from February until April, all I knew is I couldn't go back to an office job. Like I had to do something, and I'm praying every day, like, show me a path, because I know that I can't go back to it. I will if I have to, but like I'm 10 years into getting to be outside and guiding fly fishing and guiding turkey hunting and deer hunting and waterfowl and the whole deal. And like, I'm not, like, that's what I'm made for. So I can't just go back and sit at a desk anymore. And I did that for 15 years, so I knew. And then, we talk about it, spawns the idea. And then 2 weeks after we had our initial meeting, another guy comes by my house, and it's kind of the same conversation, and he wants to do something. And so, you fast forward to September, and at that point, after that second meeting, it was like, this is like maybe I felt like God's telling me something. I need to try to do something. So I'm thinking of people to maybe try to fund our operation. And this one guy keeps popping in my head. So I'm like, I've never started a business in my life. Don't have the first clue about how to do it. But I literally got on Google, and I'm like, business plan. What does it look like? So I knew enough from running the operation before that it was like, I can get pretty close to what I think the market will allow, what we can charge, what we can offer, get as close as I can to cost evaluations and all that stuff. So I put this thing together, and, it's completely different than what it ended up being. But anyway, I take it to this guy. I've set up a lunch meeting, take it to him, and he says yes, like on the spot, to fund our entire operation. And so, that was later in the latter part of the summer of 17.
And when you say fund the operation, you're talking about buying the land?
I'm talking about the whole thing.
Okay.
Like, just let me know how much I need to deposit into your account.
And to be honest, the scale of it was much, much smaller. Like, the business plan allowed for way less than what it ended up being.
Sure.
And that was kind of him driving us to be like, hey, you're in a good situation here, which we're in a unicorn situation, so it allowed for us to be a little more cavalier in what we were spending and how big we went. But he was complicit in driving that. I mean, like I said, it was a lot smaller. So I called JD and Aaron. I don't even think they believed me in the beginning, like they were sort of like, you mean we don't have to put any money up? I remember you guys asking me that, and I'm like, no, like, this is it. Like, and they're like, holy smokes. So it didn't seem real to me either. Like, for the first year or two, it was like, it didn't seem real to us that, with this opportunity is laid out before us. And so it was like, we were super humble, and we still are. It's like, we're just like, we cannot take credit for this, because it was just one thing after another. Every time we thought we were going to hit a wall or some kind of massive hurdle, it was like, there's the solution immediately.
It's comical.
And it was over and over and over. So, once we had the plan, the piece of land, that we bought was on the market. It had sold at auction a year before we ended up closing on it for $50,000 more than we paid for it.
What?
So it was the first piece of property we looked at.
Yeah, it was the first. Wow. It was the second, actually.
Second.
I think Harold and I went to the first one, and that place we had to have an easement that we couldn't get. So we were like, this isn't going to work. So we find this place online, and it had been sitting on the market for over a year, and or close to a year, and we put an offer in, and ended up, like I said, buying it for less than what it had sold for. So, like, all these different things, like, small example, we're assuming we can dig a well for our water source, and we call the well guys, and they're like, no way, dude. There's no chance you're getting enough water.
This is after you bought it?
This is after we've already started construction.
Wow.
So, like, due diligence, like, oh no, what do we do? Well, Harold, our other partner, he's like, I think there's a county water line down the road. And I'm like, well, go down there and look, because this is bad. Like, we
got to have water.
This could derail our entire situation. Yeah. And so he goes down there, and sure enough, the county water line ends on our road.
Wow.
And we had no clue. So, we run a water line and all. Now we've got fire hose pressure at the lodge. It's crazy. So,
in general, waterfowl in Oklahoma was not nearly as big.
No. So the Oklahoma waterfowl thing, and you guys will touch back on how we ended up there. So I was guiding at a place east of Tulsa, And Harold and I were going and hunting with my mentor, a guy who passed away a year or two ago now, taught me how to blow a duck call and kind of pretty well helped me, build the desire to want to hunt ducks at all. Duck calling is what made me want to become a duck hunter. So we were going out there with him and just blown away, like completely blown away every time we went about the sheer numbers and the concentrations of ducks and geese. And I'm like, this is like, I've never been anywhere and seen anything like this. So when we met the first time, it was like, that's the only thing I was sure of. After the second year of going out there, I started to look around and see who I could, if there's anybody with an East Arkansas style duck lodge or presence out there, and there was none.
And what do you mean by East Arkansas? Like,
well, I mean, like
for people who don't know that,
a big full service, amenity driven, customer service driven, experience driven lodge, that's like, not only are you going to experience phenomenal hunting, but like, we're going to feed you really good food. You're going to have a bar. You're going to have, a range to shoot at. We're going to drive you to the spot. We're going to do all the work, and all you have to do is show up and shoot. A full service, really, really customer service driven lodge. Cool. It didn't exist for the waterfowl, from a waterfowl perspective in the state of Oklahoma at the time. And, we kind of were the first ones that started that whole market in the state. And
there were people there guiding and
killing
that had
ducks,
operations
sure.
that had
Wacky.
great operations, but
guide services, not
they were
outfitters.
guide services.
Yeah.
We like to think of ourselves as more of an experience giver. Like you're not coming just to kill as many ducks and geese as you can.
Yep.
You're coming for the whole experience.
Yeah.
And there was nobody there doing that. And the reason there is in Southeast Arkansas is because there's such a culture built around that. There's such a history. And there was not that history. The resource was there, but the history wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now between us and, a few others, we're sort of building the culture, leading the leading edge of the culture getting developed in Oklahoma. And the locals still, a lot of them think it's stupid. They're like, these things are a pest. It still doesn't register in their mind that people will pay money to come and experience like what they just want off of their property,
Wow.
So it's kind of interesting in that way. But, anyway, so yeah, we found the property and,
this is like 17, 20.
This is
yeah, so it was
17.
15, 16 that I was going over there, here and there on days off, guiding at the other place by Tulsa. And then, 17, end of 17, we bought it was end of 17. Yeah, the end of 17, we bought the property.
Okay.
We started construction, April of 18. We built everything on our entire property in 6 months. We had an unbelievable builder.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like April to September. It wasn't even 6 months.
So y'all, I mean,
And the lodge is like 7,000.
You literally have to, again, think about like the timing here. I mean, it was April 17 that we texted Josh. We go have lunch. We end up buying this property. We have a buddy that says yes to funding it. Mm-hmm. We buy the property in November of 17.
End of October. I think
End of October 17. We start construction
mid-April of 18.
Okay.
The lodge, the wetland, the guide quarters, the shop, everything is completely done, and we are fully booked by September of 18.
That's unbelievable.
Wow.
And so, like we've been on a lot of these and people are like, you got to be so proud of what you've built. Like it is comical to think that we had a whole lot to do. We've taken steps, and I say this all the time, but God like clearly laid them out.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of times you pray that God would like make this clear, and he doesn't a lot. You kind of are like Paul, you're running into, well, I guess I'm not supposed to go there, so I'm going to keep moving. This was just like the most clear he's ever been, I think, in our lives. So
I think one unique perspective y'all have is it's not like you're 25, 30 taking these, like how old are y'all when y'all are taking these risks? You have families, you have kids, like this isn't like a very easy risk to take or easy jumping off point for any of you, is it?
No, I mean, I was 35, JD's 36, Aaron's 32, 3, 4. Oh, you're 43?
43.
Hey, this is Aaron.
I just looked, man. I don't know what it is. Y'all look like old people.
You just turned 40.
I'm still fired. I love you.
He's running dogs around.
So Aaron's 34. I'm 35. JD's 36 when we started.
Yeah.
And I had 3 kids. JD had 3 kids. Aaron had 1 at the time.
I think Dennis was pregnant.
Okay, yeah, his wife's 3. She has 3 now.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were in the thick of it, family wise, and all that. And so, what we had that a lot of places struggle with is, we had connections with affluent folks that love to spend money on this type of thing. So Aaron, coming from Wildlife Farms, he had a big list. JD, if you know John David very long, you meet him once and he's going to be your best buddy. And so he's got a insane, list of contacts. And I had a fair amount too from where I was. So I don't even remember how we did this or how I went about it, but I do remember somehow I got all their contacts and all of mine, put them in a spreadsheet, just wiped out everything but emails and phone numbers. And then that was our initial contact list. And I used, a online email service and then an online text service. And we booked, I think it was, probably 75% of our entire first season was all just from people we knew. And then,
is that like while you're building the lodge, like you don't have?
We're doing it all at the same time.
You don't. It's not like y'all have a bunch of trips where people are like, yeah, we've been out there and whacked ducks with these guys.
They had to trust us. Go ahead.
For me personally, this was like my dream when I was 18 years old. My dad took me to a little guide place out in eastern Colorado and kind of showed me what this man did. And I remember driving away and I said, I want to do that. I want to do exactly what that guy did. He said, no, you're going to do that way better. So I always fortunately had this mentality that like every customer I met as I guided around the country, I went to Colorado State and studied hospitality, outdoor recreation, and tourism, that I was going to have to call these people one day. And so the very first person that I called when we got to that point was a guy named Vinny Liu from San Francisco that I had guided in Stuttgart. So it was kind of like, out of these 30 people, who's going to be the easiest on me, and at least like say, hey, Aaron, like change your sales pitch, do this. And without even blinking, and we had 2x4s up at that time for the lodge, and without even blinking, he said, give me all, 16 spots for the best dates you got. Right then and there, which for me personally, that gave like the catalyst to me, like saying, well, I can call anybody now, And so like I think about him constantly for that, because it was really like the spark that I needed at that moment to like utilize this contact list I developed for 15 years of my life, knowing that one day, like, hopefully I wanted to reach out to those people if I was an opportunity. And then there I was,
It's crazy.
So, and he's still there. And we've probably
one of our close friends.
20 plus, 30 plus groups maybe that have been there since year one that are still coming now 8 years later, which is crazy.
And that's the thing. People were like, yeah, have y'all been? We're like, no, I've tried to come. You can't get in. So
yeah. And that was, honestly, that was designed from the beginning. It was like, if we can hit it out of the park and, guys turn this into almost a quasi club mentality where they have their own dates every year, then that's like staying power. And that's what we were able to do. And, what's funny is like, we didn't reinvent the wheel here. There's a lot of people that have done this over and over, but we hear it all the time. It's like, man, y'all are just different. You just don't, we've been everywhere and this place is just different.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because, like most places you go, and I don't want anybody out there to think that we're cutting down another operation.
There's a lot of people that do it really, really well.
Yeah, and there's some really good places. I think the difference is there's very few where the people who have the most vested interest in the operation, namely us three, are fully engaged in building relationships with those customers every single time they come.
Wow.
So it's like, when they're there, we're there with them. We're hunting with them. We're hanging out at dinner with them. We're standing around a fire with them, and it's not work to us to do that. Like we want to be around them because they now have become our friends.
Yeah.
And so it's like every single group is like, well, golly, man, sorry, you guys got to go, hug your neck. But then, hey, man, so-and-so's coming this afternoon. So it's like just a constant flow of stuff like that. And and then, the place has a really cool vibe. There's music always on. It's always upbeat. Everybody's
talk
excited.
About when you walk, the experience, when you pull onto the property, what do people, what can you expect? I've just heard it's absolutely incredible.
Well, so I'm a very type A personality.
He is.
So like there's no such thing as good enough in my mind. Like if perfection's not it, then we still got work to do. And it's unattainable. So there's, you're always trying to do things to the absolute best you can. So when I had the hospitality side, an experience with it with the last place I worked, sort of developed it there and didn't even realize at the time that I was learning these things that I would need later. Learned a lot of what to do, learned a lot of what not to do. And so when I sat down to sort of try to tailor the operation, I mean, it was like in the weeds from the time a guy opens his door, every moment that he's there, minute by minute, how do we make every minute, something that registers and he remembers? So that's how detailed I tried to get with it. And then, we bounced ideas off of each other the whole time. And before we knew it, the first group shows up and it's like, they're just blown away, completely blown away. And it was like, well, that was cool. Let's see what happens the next one. And then years later, it's like we hear it over and over and over again. And, you can let yourself almost get arrogant about it, but it's like, no, man, I mean, all we're really doing is applying the golden rule. That's all it is. It's like, we're just doing everything we can to treat people exactly how we would want to be treated if we're going to their establishment and paying money to, to experience something. That's it. It's really that simple. And, thankfully we just all really enjoy good food and a cool environment. And building
relationships. And so we can't skip over the first group too fast because this is just another example, and I might be beating a dead horse, but we've got to give credit where credit's due. So, we start this thing, and Josh, not only he's super talented and is an incredible photographer. So we were building this Instagram, and now, Instagram is the driving force behind a lot of businesses nowadays. And, it was started before we started. So we knew that we had to have a presence on social media to kind of get people's attention to our lodge in Oklahoma. Yeah. And, so, I'll never forget. We're like, oh yeah, we've got like 500 followers now. It's like all our friends, Yeah. And again, like, if you think this is anything that we had to do with, it's comical. The first group that comes to Fowlco is a group of Christian influencers that work in the hunting industry that do social media for all these big companies that now we work with that are close friends of ours. They were the first group. So we went from like not much of a following to them getting there and having a great experience and like kind of being blown away. This is in Oklahoma, to posting all over their accounts, to then it just like after the first group, it blew up. Like our social media account blew up, which,
and if they didn't have a killer experience, they wouldn't be talking about it either.
Well, that's right. Yeah. That's right. But it is funny. Like, I just know that God knew that they were going to have a great time. I'm going to put them as the first group. That's awesome. Like, let's let them in there, and then they can tell everybody about it. And then we started having people really reaching out to us like, hey, I saw so-and-so's there, and I love, their experience that I got to, go follow along on social media with. And then it just kind of started taking
and I don't remember, we discussed doing that. It was like, we got to have a social media presence. So, and we have to have industry relationships because we don't want to pay retail for everything that we use. And at that time, we were small potatoes, but it was like, I don't remember if we called it Genesis then or not. I don't remember, but
that was the purpose.
That was the purpose.
That was the purpose. Genesis was January of the first year.
Yeah, that's right, because we did it later. So, so the purpose group was a guy that reached out to us in Tulsa who I had met.
Reagan Renfro, who's an unbelievable photographer.
And he asked if he was trying to put together this Christian men's group. So we did that. And then that ended up being what JD said. It was a whole bunch of guys. There was more dudes who were jumping out of the blind with cameras than guys with shotguns.
It just was like,
literally it was comical. Cameras. It was comical because like, you'd hear there's 20 people in the blind and, you got a few shooting, and then you see all these cameras come out and dudes just running out, laying on the ground, trying to get pictures of the dogs. and trying to get pictures of us picking up birds and stuff. And
my first experience with influencers in the wild. In the wild. It was
pretty fun.
It was different. It was wild. People are paid to do this?
Yeah.
So I can't remember if that is what spawned the idea to do the industry event or not. But anyway, since year one, we've done a group, which we're all in invitation only stuff, where it's like, these are the companies we want to partner with. So let's invite 1 or 2 guys from each of those companies to come out.
Wow.
And we call that Genesis. Is like, and so now it's the opening weekend of every year. And,
but like even to Genesis, we're inviting these brands.
Mm.
They don't know really who we are. Well, one of the guys that was at Purpose is a guy named Barton Ramsey, who's a close friend of ours at Southern Oak Kennels in Mississippi. And he is, like the Sitka Waders. When the Sitka Waders came out, he is the picture that was the huge poster in Max that's like, 30 feet by 30 feet over the wader section. That's Barton. And so he was super connected. So we invite these people to Genesis that's coming up in January. And, people are not really committing. And then Barton gets on the phone and is like, no, y'all don't understand. Y'all have to be here and experience this. This is a new lodge and they're legit. So he, like, all these people from Yeti to Sitka to, literally every brand within the industry show up because he had experienced it at Purpose.
That's right. Yeah.
The first trip. Wow. That was at Fowlco.
Yeah, so that first year, like, we went from 500 to, I don't even know, it just went on social media, Facebook and Instagram, and then it's just steadily kind of grown since then, and we showed the whole process. Like, we posted the blueprint, the rendering of the lodge originally, and then weekly photos of it all getting built and the whole thing, and so I think it engaged people and people were interested in it, and then it, I'm not sure that it how many customers that we've gotten because of the social media stuff, but it's 100% had a huge impact on building the brand recognition, which has now become
unreal,
a whole other opportunity on its own, outside of just the lodge and outfitter.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about Inception, because I think there's a lot that people can learn from y'all there. But before I do, I think one of the key themes already that's coming up is like presence. And I think there's a ton of stuff about business right now on the internet. It's like, buy a business, put an operator in it, do this. And it's like, you guys aren't doing that. And y'all have been incredibly successful already 7, 8 years in.
8 years, yeah.
And I'm sure there's pressure. Hey, you're spending 2-3 months away from your family. Why don't y'all just hire somebody to run the lodge? That has to have been a conversation that y'all have had. And it seems like you're steering away from that because you actually want to be present with your clients and your customers. And that's part of the whole Fowlco experience. So I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty unique.
We genuinely, all three believe that like a person is the most interesting thing in the world. That's organic. That's natural in all three of us. And so, again, we decided in the front end, take 16 people. That was going to be our maximum what we did. And the three of us in a room can make sure we get a personal touch on every single person that's in there when we spread out. And so to be that owner driven, there's no doubt that that's one of the top things that's gotten us to where we are. Awesome.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that you can't be successful, doing it the other way where you're sort of the back end of it and you hire people to fill roles. But there's a tangible difference in, like I said, when the people who have the most vested interest are fully engaged in the operation and doing everything they can to make sure. Because especially in the service business,
especially this business.
It's a huge, huge thing where it's like, I don't have to go ask you to call your manager. Like, I'm talking to the guy that makes all the or the guys that make all the decisions, like, right now. And fortunately, we don't have very many that have anything but positive things to report. Hunting's at times, and we have to deal with that every now and then. But even that has been few and far between. Most of the time, the hunting's spectacular, and and we got a lot of credit to give to the guys that work for us. We've only, I don't know, 2 people in 8 years. One person that we let go, or really 2 people that we've let go in 8 years, and
one person that I married, and he, we hated to leave him. He's like, a little brother of ours that we love dearly.
Just got out of the business completely. So we've let go 2, and then we've had 2 leave amicably. And so we've, but 22 people, we got the same staff, and y'all gotta understand, like, especially on really everybody, but on the guide side, who, which the majority of them are guides or people, doing the actual grunt work in the operation. I mean, it's 4 a.m. to 11 p.m. minimum every single day for 4 months, other than the holidays and a 4-day break in the split. So, like, you're tired, you're hungry.
You start putting those work hours together, and you're working as much or more than anybody that goes to work 8 to 5 rest
Monday
of the
through
year.
Friday for a whole year.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we did the math, and we work more hours, or we're on call, I should say. Don't get me wrong, we aren't moving the 15, 16 hours a day, but we're on call. We're like, there's something that you might have to do for that whole time. And if you add all those hours up, it's more than the average person works in a whole year. So, my wife, I'm sure all of our wives make comments like that. Well, it's, you only have to work 4 months. Mine especially, she's like, I'm like, well, yeah, but you don't understand it. like we're pushing hard for 4 months, and, and then, so it's
understandably, because they are carrying the
full
hardest load, getting all of our kids everywhere they've got to be.
Yeah.
And we always talk about it. Our wives are freaking rock stars to allow us to be honest, because we wanted their favor in doing this, and for them to all be like, go do it, go chase your dream. I mean, that's a huge deal. With a lot of weight that they knew that they were going to have to carry. And kind of back to your question about, like, why don't we have somebody, that runs it? We could, but then God also gave us talents to be able to do this. And so then you kind of forget about where you came from, or what, God has blessed you to be able to do well. And
that's a really good point.
And if we did, then we're kind of going, all right, God, thank you for getting us here. Now
yeah, it's almost like it's more than a business, which it always has been to us. It's never been a business. I mean, I've told my parents that it's like, there's so many opportunities. There's no better platform to like dig into the spiritual realm with someone than when they're watching the sunrise and seeing these incredibly beautiful creatures doing things that they've never seen before. And it's like, it just opens doors, opens opportunity for conversation. And, we're pretty bold, about that, about spiritual things. It's like, honestly, that is probably the most rewarding part of the whole thing, is like seeing how people get affected. Not just, it ain't us, it's the Spirit through us. But that business and the operation and the people in it, God works through it, and we see that every single day. And so that's like the most rewarding part of the whole thing. And I think that's why he's blessed it so much. And I think as long as we, my dad tells me this all the time. He's like, hey, I know, don't let it go to your head. Like, always keep the main thing the main thing. And as long as you guys do that, then I think, Fowlco will continue to grow and succeed. And so, there's probably been moments where we've all let it go to our heads a little bit. Sure. It's human nature. But as soon as it starts to happen, we're good about checking each other and like, just, hey, this ain't us,
My wife's really good about checking me.
Yeah.
It really is like the coolest job on the planet.
It is.
I mean, like, we're in the business of making core memories with people. I got a customer that first time, he's from Georgia. First time I got him was probably 07. And like every year since 07, I've got to like go out with this guy and his son, and now his son-in-laws, and like make core memories. And we got them going back a long time. So like, I wouldn't want to miss that. I want to be there every time Mr. Dale shows up.
He's a mess too.
He's the greatest. Love him. He's so loyal to me, though.
But man, that is the business, and is when people, when you're providing a really good experience, and you're able to control the things that you can control, because there's a lot of things about the migration we can't control. That's out of our hands. And there's a genuine sense of, I care about you and I care about your family. Then, why would people not want to come out back? Because we really do. I mean, like we've had people that have been going through hard things that have shown up in Northwest Arkansas for a weekend because they don't know where else to go.
Wow.
That's not.
They'll go hang out with their duck guide.
Yeah. I mean,
It's like, wow.
and he's like, who's coming in town? I'm like, well, they're going through. Okay, I'm in. And like, that's what it's about. That's what's freaking cool is not only like, do we get to love on those people like in the off season and keep a relationship with them, but then they're going to bring and trust us with their clients or friends, excited to bring them to, our place and have a great time out in God's creation. So
it's another cliche. It's like any business, the relationship is the most important ingredient. And if you don't have that, it really doesn't matter how good your product is there's probably times where product matters a lot, but I mean, sustainability and staying power is all about relationship building. And so we all have never questioned that. Like we all felt that way coming into it naturally. And it was like all three of us just put the most emphasis on that in that equation. And it's worked really, really well.
It's awesome. So let's rewind a little bit to inception here, whatever details y'all want to share, but like buying the land, is it roughly 300 acres where the lodge is at?
320.
And talk about like maybe how much that was or how much it cost to build the lodge, the scope of the project, what it's like raising capital, any advice to entrepreneurs who are thinking about partnering with someone on the capital front, anything you guys learned from that, anything you do differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think that so we paid $1,200 an acre for that ground in 2017. Now it's probably worth $5,000 an acre, and it's driven the market. But as far as like knowing now what I didn't know then is like, don't be afraid to ask, especially if you have a relationship, but don't go into, I think what a lot of people run into, which I've had to learn this the hard way, even since then, is like, you can't go and approach someone to get capital without a plan. It's like an idea is great, but if you don't have the nuts and bolts at least somewhat figured out, people don't have the time, affluent people don't have the time or the willingness to even listen. Like if you get a plan and you can show point A to point B, even if it doesn't have to be the most, professional, like you've done it forever. Like you can give it your best shot, and put as much detail into it as you possibly can, based on what you know or what you think is going to be, what you can project or whatever, and have a plan. And, I think your odds of success and getting someone to listen to you and do something are way higher if you do that. Just taking someone an idea is really tricky, to get any results from that. That's my experience and what I know now. Not to say I'm an expert on it at all, but I think having a plan is super important.
So you'll pay like $400K for the land, the lodge. Are you wrapping all that into like a construction loan type deal?
Yeah. So we have our investment. Our investor is he basically was like, it started out, we were looking for 5 or 10 acres just to build a building on. Yeah. And he calls me, I don't know, it was sometime a month or two after we'd had our initial meeting. And he said, hey, how much land do you need to hunt on or to be able to hunt on? And I said, oh man, like at least a quarter section was 160. I said, but probably better a half section, which is 320. And he's like, we'll do that. And I was like, whoa, dude, like, if we do that,
because the numbers are ticking up here. We're like,
it's like we
got to pay this back.
Yeah, like the initial business plan is gone. I mean, there's more money in just buying this land than there was for our whole operation. And he's like, well, don't worry about it. Don't worry about the money. It'll be fine. And so we just ended up in a super unique situation with someone who believed wholeheartedly in what we were doing and that, the area and the state needed it. And it, I can't even, we tell everybody the situation. Nobody really even believes it. They're like, there's something criminal going on here, almost.
Oh, dude, people have thought that we were a money laundering operation for the mob out of Chicago.
Toby Keith's
people
son.
thought that I was Toby Keith's son.
Yeah.
Is it The Voice?
The local.
Yeah.
No, I mean, seriously, that was a rumor going
Yeah,
around.
so the county we're in Oklahoma has one town, one legitimate
This
sized
Garber or
town.
what?
It's Enid.
Enid. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Enid, Oklahoma, and everything else around is nothing but farmland and little, small. I mean, I say small. I'm talking like 300 people. Small, like really small towns, and it's super rural. There's very few people, and so but everybody knows everybody. So coffee talk shop. It's like we come out there and almost drop a nuclear bomb in that type of environment.
These guys from Arkansas.
Yeah, it's big money, and which was another hill we had to climb, when we were leasing land, is like we couldn't just go and ask because they see this big construction project and we're taking a viable farm and turning it into recreation. They're like, what in the world? These guys are crazy. And so we had to go and sit down at kitchen tables and meet people and really try to not only sell them on the idea of allowing us access to their land, but they had to get to know us to a point where they trusted us and didn't think we were shysters.
And they realized that our family weren't Brazilianaires, coming into
normal guys.
Yeah, I mean, like dad's a dog trainer, dad's a farmer, dad's a metal worker. Like,
yeah.
we're just chasing a dream.
We know y'all's world a little more than you think we do.
I remember specifically going to sit down with a really well-known family in a small town, and we went and sat in a bank conference room that was about 115 degrees in July, the three of us, and the whole family comes to see what this is about. I mean, grandchildren all the way up to the grandfather, and we sat there and went kind of back and forth about what we were doing and this and that. And right when we were about to leave, the one man in the family that was kind of the most critical of what we were doing, he said, well, I'm going to buy that place for 25 cents on the dollar when y'all fail. And I remember the three of us getting in the car, and I'm saying, we're going to prove that man wrong. But I remember that lighting a fire kind of under all three of us. A little bit of doubt goes a long way when you're in that situation.
That. Yeah, they legit all thought we were crazy.
Yeah. Crazy. So, is that from, the land value perspective? It's like, hey, is this – because, just industry, wide, recreational users – can pay and lease a little bit more than farmers, correct? I mean, is that kind of...
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's a little bit more because it's, it's so dependent on whether there's birds using that land or not. So most of the land we have access to, we have exclusive access to it, but we only pay when there's birds on it. I mean, you're talking about 4 counties that they can land on anywhere. And so we're just strategically...
Totally different than Arkansas.
It's totally different. Yeah.
Arkansas, you would go lease, there's a lot of people that lease like a 1 pit blind in a field for $10,000 a year. You couldn't do that because those birds might not be in that area. So we stretch over, I don't know, close to 500,000 acres is what we have access to. You couldn't do that in Arkansas.
No,
you couldn't have that much money.
Absurd amount of money.
I mean,
so the lease rates are cheaper, significantly cheaper there.
Yeah, because there's not good holes.
Yeah,
where in Arkansas you have good holes where if the birds are in the area, they're going to come to that spot. Year after year after year. Over in Oklahoma, it changes so much. You have to be able to move. That's part of our big overhead in our operation is scouting, and we have guys on the road constantly. All of our guides driving 200 plus miles a day looking for birds, but, until we know where the birds are hanging out, then it gets easier. But
so are they like deer in that they're patterned every year? Like birds are kind of coming back. Sometimes these whitetail will be in the same spot on the same day of the year.
No, they're not like that at all. I mean, the only consistent thing about waterfowl is that they tend to migrate to the same general areas.
Okay.
So this
county,
area,
would you kind of that be your?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, this is a 4 county area, and it's really there's more than 4 counties. We operate in 4 counties because we don't drive further than that. It's too far to go. But they will, generally speaking, we will get the first push of little Canada geese in November, and then we'll have a few ducks around and typically, and in some years we're loaded in November, but I mean, it's just an area that they've been coming to for eons and eons. So the driver of all this is that there's no waterfowl culture in Oklahoma, even remotely comparable to Arkansas. So that's why it was such an opportunity, an untapped resource. It's like they were there. They've been there. You know, we've talked to lots of fellas that are, you know, up in age, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, these corn buzzards have been here forever and always been a pest, and you know, but they have said that the duck numbers have, you know, they seemingly have had more ducks, but I don't even know if that's true, because farmers who could care less about waterfowl, they're not looking for them.
Yeah.
And we're actually looking for them every day. So I think they've been coming there forever. And, you know, now our social media and a lot of other places, now there's 7 different lodges within 150 miles of us. Now there's like such a focus and a spotlight on Oklahoma in general. It's kind of become a destination and a place people are interested in. So
talk about that first year. Did y'all fill up, was it 80%? Did you fill up all the spots? And like, how did that look from, okay, here's how much capital we had to take on. Here's kind of our debt service. Here's like our business model. Like, were y'all making money the first year? What
Not
was,
really.
Okay.
No, I mean, the first year we pretty well broke even.
Okay.
We paid the bills and paid, you know, ourselves and all that, but we didn't really have any extra money. Year 2, we went up.
Yeah, year two we went up, and then year 4
we had an initial discussion. I was wanting to be a lot higher, and JD and Aaron were both in agreement that we should start lower to avoid sticker shock because we're brand new. What was that? I mean, and like a couple days. Do y'all sell packages by how many days you're there? 2 days or 3 days.
$750 a day.
$750
and my
a
reason
day.
for that is because the lodge I worked at before, that was their price, and that's what my customer base was used to paying.
Yeah. So I listened to them, and we started the first year, and I kind of knew we weren't going to make a lot of money at that because I knew what everything was going to cost to some extent. And so we ended up, I think we booked 90, we didn't book it completely full, but it was like 95 to 98%.
Still crazy.
Still crazy, yeah. And then we went to 950 the following 2 years and did a little better. And then I think 2 years, the next year we went to 1250.
1250.
And then we went to that, we did that for a year or two, and then we went to 1750 and did that for 3. And then now next we just went up. So next year we'll be at 2250, which is I don't know of another place that charges that for just waterfowl. I mean, there's places that
even
are more.
South Arkansas, there's nowhere.
Five Oaks is probably a little more than that, but they're even smaller. They take a smaller group than we do. And I mean, they have been around forever and ever. I mean, that's one of the staples in Southeast Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's 6, because y'all 16 doesn't feel like that big of a group.
That's
is
Right.
it?
They do 10.
Okay.
But the style of hunting is different. Again, we could be running 36.
Yeah.
You know, we could be running 50.
And why not? Why not?
Because the experience and the relationship. Like, you lose efficiency in every aspect. The food, the hunting, the relational aspect, you lose efficiency in all that. The more the whole time our idea has been, let's make this as boutique and personable as possible. And let's keep it at that. And let's don't forget that's where we started.
That's awesome.
And let's keep it at that. So we can grow the brand in other ways, but let's not lose that, because that's kind of what got us to the dance.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like anything else in the market, it's supply and demand. So the supply is limited, it's 16 a day, which has allowed us, the demand's been so high, it's allowed us to, incrementally increase our prices. And, we've never, to be honest, like dead serious, we've never increased, because we could.
Yeah.
We've only increased out of necessity. And, if you come over there, you'll see how much goes back into the operation. Ain't none of us getting rich off of it.
Right.
I mean, we all make a living, but nobody we feel so fortunate to be able to do it. I mean, I think we all feel that way, that it's like, I need to make enough to do this, to justify it. But no, I mean, every increase has always been out of necessity, not out of, just because we could. And hopefully, and I think our customers, they believe us when we tell them that, because they keep coming back with every one, the majority. But yeah, and that's what it is. It's like, if we can, you always have a demand, if the supply is low. You double, triple the supply. Well, then you lose everything we've talked about relationally and the ability to have one-on-one conversations and get to know everybody. And then people come and the vibe completely changes. It becomes like I'm just a number here and I'm just getting herded through, and we just do not ever want to participate in that. So you got staying power. I mean, our waiting list is absurd. I don't even like to say it because most people think it's made up. But it's thousands of people trying to get in.
Crazy.
And we don't turn over 5%. I mean, at maximum 5% of our clientele every year.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's none. So,
and to that point, for me, it was kind of a pivotal moment was 2020, and like the realization of like the staying power of outdoor recreation, even through the lows. And then you go back historically, that's the case. I mean, it booms when times get crazy. So that was kind of where I felt like it was where we adjusted the price around that time and went through that phase, and things still boomed. But I felt more confident in our ability to go up overall.
Yeah, we've got like a real brand here.
I mean, it made me feel even better about the industry that I already knew about. It was just, I mean, at a low spot, it can go high. Yeah.
Well, and the economy's changed too. I mean, people that are, probably Gen X and since, it's transitioned from, I'm going to put most of the money I make in the bank and, invest it and let it grow to, people, I think y'all will probably agree. You guys are younger than us. It's like, I want to retire at some point, but man, you only live once and I want to experience things. So it's become an experience economy, and people now are spending way more money to go places and have experiences and all that stuff, which is great for our business, because it's, there's some people that are always going to love to duck hunt and goose hunt, and they're going to, there's plenty of those out there. It's not a huge market, but it's big enough. So.
It's cool. Well, last thing before we kind of swap over the mid-life cycle of business, maybe starting in 2020, it feels like that's when things really started to kind of blow up a little bit. But as you think through that inception, kind of all the things you guys did, were there any just big mistakes kind of come back to the forefront of your memory? Whether it's the
We're
way
having to think
were,
about it.
Yeah.
So I mean,
big mistakes, I would say no. I mean, minor things.
Yeah.
But I guess for me, it would always be that we, I'm kind of so I was actually talking to my financial guy yesterday, and he is the opposite end of the spectrum of me. Like we were talking about sunglasses, and he's like, my wife paid $200 for a pair of sunglasses. Like, I would never do that. I just can't do that. I probably have like 10 pairs of $200 sunglasses. And it's like, I just don't. So I'm wired that way, which is this is a really cool thing between our dynamic is like, Aaron is probably on the opposite end of the spectrum I'm on when it comes to finances, and JD's kind of right in the middle. So we have a super healthy balance of like, when we discuss if we're going to do something or not, it's like, who knows who will bring up the idea or whatever. But there's like a really good balance of, his super cautious personality, mine throw caution to the wind, and JD's kind of right in the middle, So it's, I think that's helped us avoid any major financial
some of those mistakes.
Problems. Yeah.
Well, and talk about like partnership in business, maybe things that, hey, if someone's, maybe thinking about starting a partnership right now, they're midway through ways they can be better partners with each other. What would you tell somebody in either one of the situations?
Man, we lived together. I mean, literally 3 months a year. JD's right across the hall from me.
Yeah, but initially we didn't hardly even know each other. So what do you?
Man, I think that as quickly as you can get to the point where you know what you're good at, and having the humility to say, hey, I'm not good at what you're good at, and you're better at that. I think that's kind of what organically, which I'm so thankful that we didn't have. And one thing that, one reason we hadn't had any huge blow ups is we know that we're better at other things than each other. And it just organically have fallen into that role. Now that's hard when you're starting, that doesn't always happen like that. I realize that. And I know, like, I don't take that for granted. Also, like, I mean, we're also pretty like secure in who we are. So there's like, if Josh tells me I did something, I'm not like, oh, you think I'm good? I mean, like, it's like we're men and we can handle that. And I know that he loves me. I know that Aaron loves me, and that like he cares about my family, you know, more than any of my other friends, like, you know, the same as Josh. And so like all that off the table, we can take whatever little criticism might come our way and be like, God, yeah, sorry, that was dumb. Let's move past that. I'm sorry about, I have a tendency to be intense. I think they tell you. And every now and then I'll just have to be like, hey, I'm sorry I'm being so intense. Like, I realize that I'm intense.
Did you know you were yelling?
Yeah, I'm not. In my heart, I tell this to my wife all the time. In my heart, I promise I'm not yelling. I love you so much.
I mean, I think it's like some level of spiritual alignment is super important.
Yeah.
Like I think it'd be really hard to have, you know, a sold out, faithful Christian and an atheist working as partners, because your worldview is so far apart. I'm not saying like there's not certain, you know, we don't have to all be exactly the same, but there's got to be some kind of worldview alignment, because that drives so many decisions and all that. And then, you know, personalities, like you can't like we always talk about with everybody that works there. It's like leave your ego at the door. We all got them, especially in the hunting world. Like if you're a hunter and you're good at it, it's the ego can just eat you alive.
And you are the best.
Yeah. I mean, we all think that deep down. Like I think we would all agree that we think we are the best at whatever we do. But it's fine to think that internally. But like you can't mouth it. You can't verbalize it all the time. And you know, you can joke about it, but at the same time, it's like you have to respect the guy next to you, to the extent that you're not going to cut him down. You're going to always try to lift him up. And, you know, you're better off saying nothing at all than saying something critical most of the time. And that's a big problem for me, especially with my own boys. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just a mutual respect. Leave your ego at the door. Well, it's one of the 10, it's like one of the greatest commandments, like love your neighbor as you love yourself. Like treat the guy in front of you better than you want to be treated. You know, and if you do that, I think that's how partnerships thrive. Like you can partner with anybody if everybody's on the same page when it comes to those core principles. It's like you can work through anything.
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice I could give an entrepreneur setting out, looking into getting a partnership with a business, and this isn't just from Fowlco stuff, this is observations, other friends of mine, things, is try to find somebody that is equally or close to as hungry as you are for what it is. Because most of the ones I've seen, my other buddies, their relationships, one person may be bringing the hype to the deal, and the other person might be bringing the capital, and somewhere in there is where things get out of whack, where I think three of us really kind of had the same hunger at the same time. We're kind of in that same place. So I don't really feel like that was the best thing that could have happened to us overall. But yeah, hunger's important, you know.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah. And like Josh said, I mean, like taking your time on the front end to make sure that that the stuff that should be the main thing is y'all share that same main thing. Because at some point you're going to run into something and your main thing might be this and the other's main thing might be this, and you're going different directions.
Yeah.
And your business is going to get drugged that way. So
Odd numbers are better. Equal numbers are tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got two guys, it's going to be tough if they don't agree. You got three, then it's like the odd man out's going to have to
make some decisions.
He's going to have to concede. Yeah. Which is, so we have four. So I'm well, five now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, is 2020 kind of the year maybe y'all start, you know, first couple of years obviously go really well, probably exceed your expectations, but like, when does it start to feel like, holy smokes, like we've got 50,000 followers on Instagram. I mean, Thomas Rhett, Chase Rice are taught, like, when is there like a moment that y'all remember, or is it kind of just been incremental every year? Things just keep moving, reputation of the brand growing, like what?
Yeah, to be honest, it's been so organic that it's hard. I mean, for me, it's hard to put a finger on that.
Yeah.
Like the relationships have been so organic that I think, like Aaron said, I mean, I think that was a great point. I think 2020 when the whole world shut down, 2020 or 2021?
2020, yeah.
When the whole world shut down and we were going, what is about to happen? Like, are people going to be scared? You know, we didn't realize it, but they had been looking forward to it the whole time. Like, I'm getting out of the heck out of all this craziness, and I can't wait to get with my brothers and get outside.
Best part of their year, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It was a crazy one, too, because people they let loose when they got there, and, you know, we had way more, you know, just ignorant, way too over-drinking, overindulging, and, you know, you could just tell people were blowing off steam. And so, you know, I'm glad that it came and went, because
there were some conversations we had to have.
It was
clients.
Like, we get it, man. Like, I know you're glad to be out of the house, but like,
that's not what this place is about. Yeah. So,
from a growth standpoint, I agree. It has been kind of just slow, organic, incremental, but that was 2 or 3 years ago. We all three looked at each other, and just the entire process of the business was operating like a sewing machine.
Yeah.
From front to back. Like, we had almost worked every kink in the chain out, to the point that I think we all three, like, within the first couple of weeks of being there, you know, guiding and running the place that year, took a big breath, and we're like, man, we can kind of relax. Like, these guys have worked here for 3 or 4 years. They got this. You know, we don't have to micromanage anybody anymore. For me, that was kind of like when I realized that it had
almost questioning if that's a reality. Is like, something should be
wrong.
Well, you know, like big business, they'll have training programs. You know, it's like you come in, you get trained, and they go through PowerPoints and whatever. And like, we don't have that. So it's like, you just gotta like jump right in,
watch what I do,
and watch what we do. And not only do we want you to do it, but we want you to do it a certain way, like with a certain attitude all the time. And fortunately, like, we've had young guys that have come up and grown with the business, and they're, you know, that's really cool too. You know, like, we got guys out of high school barely that have been there the whole time, and now they're, you know, some of our top people, and they're about to get married, and it's like, that's super cool.
Yeah,
to me.
it is.
It's like and we never had to, like, we didn't have to teach them to work. Like, they're willing to work, but it was like on the job training all the time. And that does allow us to, like, take a breath and be like, man, we really don't have to worry about the operation part of it. Now we can focus more on really solidifying these relationships and growing them and maintaining our customer base every year.
Yeah, I mean, like, kind of what you were talking about earlier. I think that's a great point, Aaron and Josh, that, you know, the guys now, the business is running smoothly. We got guys that understand what our expectations are, and they've watched us operate the business, and we're still there. You know, essentially where we're at now is, if there's a problem, you come to us.
Yeah.
If there's no problems, we really don't want to hear from you.
Yeah.
You know what to do.
Yeah.
Let's rock and roll. And that has allowed us the freedom, to your point earlier, why don't we hire somebody because they are handling the stuff that needs to be handled that we were having to handle. Now, if we need to run home to a volleyball game, or if we need to, you know, if there's something that happens, it's not an issue if we leave and run home real quick. We're coming back, you know.
How far is it from Northwest Arkansas?
3 hours.
3 hours.
Yeah.
Three
3.5 for them. Yeah.
And I think it was around that time that Josh has been really diligent about, like, our team culture. I mean, we take a group fishing trip, a group turkey hunting trip, you know, every year, and, you know, I mean, he's done a brilliant job of keeping it a family and keeping us a team, you know, from the bottom out. And I mean, from a business standpoint, the guys that have come in with us, Tanner, for instance, he started out fresh out of high school the first year. His work ethic just excelled him in the place in the business, but he, you know, has grown up in our business, you know, with our culture and our mentality. So, like, you know, for him, the other guys, Ken and Kaysen too, they kind of come to mind on that deal. They just had no concept of, you know, what, like, kind of like, well, Tanner did, I guess, to an extent, but like the commercial side of things and like a hunting world looked like. But it just not like it was a benefit to hire young people that didn't have like a big grown opinion in their heads, you know, about what it could be or what it should be. And that's really helped, I think, just to hire the right people on the front end and teach them our way of doing it, I guess. So.
Yeah, it's funny because thinking about that as you're talking, it's like the only two people we've let go, it was ego.
100%.
It was ego that got them, you know, and the guys that are there now. I mean, don't get me wrong, they have it, but you just got to keep it in check.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're all pulling on the rope together, and
we're in a pretty interesting industry where it's fun and it's attractive and people want it. So, I mean, we don't take that for granted. Like, we have a lot of people that would love to work at Fowlco and be in this industry in general, not even just Fowlco. But there's something about not going to get that guy who won the whatever championship. Like, I know that these guys will wake up at 4:00 and they're careful with our equipment and they can back up a trailer and we can depend on them to be there to do the things that we need to get done. I don't care about Joe Blow that won that calling competition. Like, these guys will work and understand our culture. And so, I mean, to be honest, it speaks a lot, I believe, to our culture that we have the same people working for us that from when we started, really.
Character over competency.
Yeah, character over competence.
100%.
Because they will learn the stuff that they need to learn, to do the job. It's being willing to do the job.
Our chef, for example.
Yeah.
He knew very little about cooking, but the man has the greatest people skills, sincere hardest working person on the planet. I mean, talk about somebody that's into perfection. He's the definition of that.
Yeah,
but, I mean, people come up to him constantly during the year. Where did you go to culinary school? And he's just like, I'm a good old boy from Texarkana, on a landscape mist on the side, that's Brian. But yeah, hiring the right person with the right attitude, teaching them the way that, is most effective for the business. It seems to be the ticket for us. That's
amazing. So let's talk about growing. Y'all have grown a lot. The brand has grown a lot. When you started, you own the 300 acres. Did y'all buy more land? I know you said you have around, 500,000 acres. I assume you leased most of that.
Lease.
Yeah. So talk about, did y'all buy any more land, or is it all leased? And like, are you rolling capital from, the appreciation in your 300 acres into some of that? How are you going about growth? What capital is needed to do that?
We haven't yet, but it's funny. There's like this one piece that abuts us on the north side of our property, and the owner, we've got a great relationship with him. He's given us verbally first right of refusal on it, but he just won't sell it. And so we've been waiting. Basically, we hadn't bought anything because it's like, if we're going to buy it, we got to buy this one because it's right next to us. And then there's another place that was going to potentially be for sale to the southeast of us. But pretty much everything we've kind of tried to key in on is like right there around us. And we haven't been able to buy any of it yet. I mean, I think in a perfect world, if we had unlimited capital, we'd just go buy everything we could out there. But it's a strange area because very few places come up for sale. And we're only interested in stuff that is viable from a recreation perspective. And another unique part of that area is this water access it's tough.
Yeah.
So, there may be 50 farms that come up for sale in a year or two, and there may not be one or two of them that have the kind of water resources we need to do what we need to do. So for that reason, we haven't bought anything yet, those reasons. But as far as growth, we just had last year or so, 6 months, we partnered with a family office, and so they're really interested in trying to help us grow the brand. And, branding, got a place that we're working on in southern Oklahoma called Boggy Creek, and probably going to end up being a private equity club. And so we're developing that. And, it's kind of funny. You don't realize you have the knowledge you have until you need to put it to work. And so collectively, it's like we're going down there and turning this place into an absolute dime piece of a property.
Banger.
Yeah. And aesthetically, from the aesthetics to the habitat to, and it's not just us three. Like, we've got all of our guys are adept at, understanding how to take a piece of ground and maximize its potential recreationally.
Yeah.
And so that's our plan, is to go down there and turn it from what it was, left to Mother Nature for 10 to 15 years to bringing it to the absolute best it can be. And so that's the recreational side of the brand is hopefully over time we'll be able to brand all these properties that we're buying, developing with this group. They'll be known as Fowlco properties. and then maybe, there's the potential to do some retail stuff and retail products along the way. So
when did y'all start picking up leases? Is that like every year y'all prioritize that? And then can you talk about maybe the challenges that have started to come? Do people know, the Fowlco guys are coming to talk to us, we're going to ask them for $5 an acre?
No, the market's kind of set.
Okay.
And the thing is that it's our Achilles heel for sure. If everybody decided to take our access away, then
sure,
we'd probably have to shut the business down.
Yeah.
But it's just the golden rule. When you go and you do the things you say you're going to do, and you're of your word, and you deliver, and if you mess up, if you make ruts or something, and you call the farmer and say, "Hey, we made ruts in your field today.
Yep.
What do we need to do to make it right? Is that bring our tractor over here and smooth it out, or do we need to give you some money to help with that?" Like telling on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've really appreciated that. And I think, like you said earlier, we're not 20-something-year-old kids coming to do this. We put a lot of weight. This is our business. So if we screw up, we're going to hurt ourselves in the long run if we don't take care of it like grown men. And I think that farmers have recognized that. And, just time, you can lip service, but through consistency and time, people really kind of know who you are. And, thank the Lord, that's seems to be what has happened.
And it's mutually beneficial, they don't want those birds eating their crop.
Yeah.
And they kind of get their cake and eat it too. It's like they get something done that they would at one time would let anybody do for free. Yeah. And now they get paid for it, and paid pretty well.
Yeah.
So
we actually had a guy that would pay. He had a young guy that rode around all winter long. That was his job, was to keep the geese off his wheat fields.
Yeah.
And now we're paying him to keep them off of his wheat fields.
His life changed.
Yeah. And we had, in the beginning, we had people willing to let us hunt for free, and we've never, ever accepted that. It's like, I'm going to send you a check and you can cash it if you want, but we're going to pay our way no matter what, just out of principle, because it's the right thing to do. And it just took some time. It took a little time, and the coffee shop talk got rolling, and 4 or 5 core guys that we got in the beginning started to tell their friends, and then they would send us like, "Hey, you should call this guy. He's interested. Call this guy." And then over the first 3 or 4 years, we started getting phone calls.
Yeah.
And then that's when it really started to snowball with access stuff. It was like, "Hey, I got 5 quarters in this area. Love for y'all to hunt it if they're ever there. Cool, this is how we do it, and it's good to go." And we keep a map, that's got everything outlined that we have access to. And believe it or not, if you saw the map, you'd be like, "That is insane." And there's still gaps in it from farms that, they'll get on that we've never touched before or we've never called before. And so every year, inevitably, we'll have to be like, "Who farms this one?" Because they're on it and we have no idea who farms it. And so we'll have to find a number and, play the game like everybody else. But I would say we definitely have by far the biggest footprint in that area.
And has that gotten more competitive? I know as YouTube's picked up, all the hunting influencers, they're door knocking, doing all that. Has that been a challenge for you guys, or is it kind of y'all have such a good reputation? And how's that?
I think we throw around the most weight.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And now that everybody's kind of used to, getting paid a certain amount to do it, it certainly made that harder for someone to just swoop in there and get something. But you see a little bit of traffic, I guess, people coming through the area.
Way less than there used to be.
Okay.
I think now the people that do that, the run and gunners that are following the migration and stuff, I think they know when they get to that area that, a lot of that is locked up.
On that note, anything's possible. And our relationship to our landowner is just as important as our relationship to our customer.
100%.
Yeah.
So without one, you can't have the other.
Yeah. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, just for the idea that this industry and hunting in general is for all of us, it's such a healthy thing for especially young people to get exposed to. So, we're eliminating access to a lot of people in that general area, which is a really good area to hunt waterfowl. And we're eliminating it, because our business relies on it. So for me, it's we'll have like, a random, and I'll get calls now more often because I did it once. And so, the random high school kid will call and we'll let them go hunt with us, him and their four buddies or whatever. Cool. And then they'll tell their buddies and they'll be like, Mr. Teff, I'll get text message, Mr. Teff, can, you guys have anything we can hunt? And normally we will do everything we can to try to appease that. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing is like, there's not a lot of people, so we're not getting inundated.
Yeah.
But it's like, you're taking so much, we've got to give back as much as we can. So we try our best to do that and be good neighbors and give those kids who otherwise wouldn't have access some. And so
it's cool. All right, well, let's go back to Boggy Creek. So what's next for Fowlco? You guys locked up a property kind of in between here and in Dallas, Durant-ish, a couple thousand acres. How did that deal come together? Who's involved? What does that project look like for you guys?
Yeah. So it started with a buddy of ours out of Dallas that had an idea. And, we've been talking about doing this for a while. And we've had several people that we thought we were going to do it with. And just over time and progression of the deal, we realized maybe they weren't the best partners, or, it didn't feel right. It was always unanimous between all of us. I don't think with any of these guys, there was somebody like, we need to do something with them. And two of us are going, no, I don't like that. We always were in agreement. And then a buddy of ours out of Dallas came along, awesome human that we love, Cooper, and had this idea on this property and was approached about it. And just through a turn of events, it didn't work out, and they're crushing it on another one right now. But our new partner out of Mississippi came along and just said, hey, if there's ever a point that I can help y'all on that deal, let us know. And came to the end. He was able to help us get the property. And it made sense for us to have it, being that's what we do, and it's in Oklahoma. Anyway, that came together, but we've got to give credit where credit's due. We wouldn't have known about the property if it wasn't for Cooper believing in us and reaching out to us. So we're super thankful for that. So property in Southeast Oklahoma. It's funny because one of our close friends to the industry, Clay Forrest, they have Stewart Ranch, and he is another experience-driven lodge like Fowlco. And to be honest, he was doing it before we were doing it at a smaller scale. He would tell you that. But when we built our lodge, Clay called us and he was like, hey, I want to come up and meet with y'all and kind of look at your lodge and see what y'all are doing, because I want to do this. Even though he was guiding way before we were in Oklahoma. Family, huge. They're one of the biggest landowners in the whole state of Oklahoma.
Wow.
But Boggy Creek shares a fence with their homestead ranch, Stewart Ranch, which is really neat. So I called Clay when Coop called us about it. And I said, do you know anything about this property? It was called Deer Run Ranch. And he goes, yeah. It's like heaven on earth. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, we share a fence with it, dude. It's butts up against our homestead ranch.
Wow.
It's like, you're kidding me. So anyway, he was talking about how he would only step foot on the property one time and he can't wait to go see it because it's one of those things that he just saw over the fence, like the promised land,
Wow.
Unbelievable piece of property. It's got everything, dude. Everything you'd want in a legacy piece of ground. And when I say legacy piece of property, like big contiguous block with, everything you'd want, from flooded timber to incredible established duck habitat, great deer genetics, turkey, everything you would want. So, we want to talk about kind of what we're doing with that.
I think like for us, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, as far as the way, as owners, that we keep everything small, core, 16 people, and then we're always present. Part of our challenge, I think, to scale has always been like, what happens if we break that up? And as far as I know, no outfitter has really successfully opened multiple locations. And we know that doing that's going to kind of break up our party. So versus maybe hunting down another outfitting location like we have at Fowlco, it's a way for us to kind of grow without breaking up that party and what's worked for us. A different way to expand our footprint and, look into the recreational game, land game. And, like we talked about earlier, the staying power of the outdoor recreation industry alone tends to hold the dollar on a piece of land, even in low times. So it's a fun avenue for us to explore, and I think a way for us to grow that doesn't have a ton of risk to break up what already works for us,
Yeah, I mean, I think we're at a place where the outfitting thing is, we've sort of established that we don't want to, it doesn't really make sense for us to like, all right, JD, you're going to take this operation, Aaron, you're going to take this one, because it would water down what we've got already, and that's what's built the whole thing. So it's like, I think if we did, at this point, if we did expand in our outfitting footprint at all, it would be like, let's find an established outfitter that needs to scale to some extent, and let's teach them our culture and why it's worked so well, and try to implement those principles and that type of operation wherever they are. Not to say that's the direction we're going to go, but if we did, I think that's what it would look like. And then, with this group out of Mississippi that is now our 5th partner, they are really more interested in developing the brand.
Sure.
So, real estate, marketing, using the brand as sort of as a launching pad for these types of tracks like Boggy Creek, whether they're, we're going to buy them, develop them, and flip them, or we're going to buy them, develop them, and club them out, and do equity club memberships. And so that's really fun and cool to sort of build that process. And there's tons of clubs out there, just like there were tons of outfitters, but, how do we collectively figure out how to make a club better than everybody else's, and figure out those rules and the, parameters to get in and all that stuff. And, so that's really been kind of fun. And then the retail stuff, how do we develop products or whatever? We've got one in process right now, and it'll kind of be the first one, but like, how do we take and sell more hats and sell more t-shirts and hoodies and stickers, and then how do we potentially grow that into, other products along the way, which is really like the most scalable, I think, direction we could go. And so that's super exciting.
Super exciting.
Because, we're in this for 8 years. We've all talked about, like, if this is all we get is just doing this right here, we're Gucci.
We're good.
Yeah.
But, if there's opportunities that come along, and God keeps opening doors and lengthening the path, then we'll keep going. And we've, like JD said, we've had multiple different groups of people approach us about trying to scale or grow in some way. And I wouldn't say any of them, would have been bad partners per se or bad people. It was just the deals just weren't. We had to question them.
Yeah.
And this one we didn't have to question.
Just came
It was
together.
like this felt just like when we started the business. It was like all of us collectively were like, man, this is like there's a no-brainer. Like, we need to do this.
Yeah, the other ones felt like we were pushing.
Yeah.
And this one, I remember us having that conversation. We were sitting in the living room, and I remember just saying, this feels like when it started.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so this feels right,
So you guys acquire the property. Did y'all have to put any capital up yourselves, or that was all coming from
No, and
capital?
to be clear, we don't own this place.
No,
Our partner, our 5th partner now, and they're our 5th partner because of this acquisition of this property. Cooper introduced it to us, and then, we established an agreement with them. They were trying to raise the money to close the property, and had one guy a little further. Well, they had plenty of time left before they needed to close. Had one scenario, we brought a guy, and he was willing to do it, and they backed out on that deal because it kind of eliminated their participation. And then they kind of got their backs against the wall, to a certain extent on the closing. And so this guy was actually, we didn't even really approach him because we'd already been told they had so much out in recreational land that they weren't going to buy anymore. They were like maxed out. So anyway, long story, sort of convoluted how it all happened. but the land guy gets pulled back into the mix through a third party relationship. I mean, this is another example of like God just sort of doing this. He gets pulled back into the equation from another relationship, not us. And we end up back on a conference call with one of these guys. And I'm like, this is insane. And Thad's his name. And Thad's like, he goes, man, every time I feel like I'm, you're sort of I'm separating from y'all, I get thrown right back into the front. And he's like, there's something to this. And so we felt the same way. And, ultimately it ends up in them buying the property sight unseen. And
2,000 acres.
Yeah, 2,507 acres, sight unseen. And, like we told y'all before we started, they spend this absorbent amount of money, and we're like, man, I hope they like it as much as we do. Like, and so we all go out there in December, and they are even more blown away with it than we were. And so that sort of spawned this whole thing. Like, all right, we need to do something together. And now, just recently, in the last week or two, we've finalized our deal, and we've got a new capital partner to grow. And so, I don't know exactly where it's going to go. They're very calculated. These guys are, not cavalier in their decision making. And I'm cool with that. It's a funny thing though, when you're dealing with, this is one thing we've realized is kind of funny is like whenever we've ever made a decision financially, it's like, all right, we're going to allocate these funds. So now it's nose to the grindstone, and this has to work or we're in trouble. Like we don't have a bunch of discretionary spending, so we have to make this make sense. These guys are like, y'all just need to calm down.
More patient.
You need to chill, and
which we're not used to.
Yeah,
we don't have.
It's like need to go to the dentist.
Yeah, exactly. Y'all just need to calm down and let things play out, and we'll figure it out as we go. And it's like, no, that is not. We can't.
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic because they are more like, hey, we're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Well, there's no consequences. Like for them,
but we're treating it as if like we're all gonna die if we don't nail it.
Exactly. It's kind of funny.
But
I think that's a good
speaks
mix.
to your hyper intentionality and hyper focus, which y'all have that's
well,
been
you
a
have
theme.
to be.
Yeah.
You have to be. It's like, not just monetarily, but like relationally with our original investor. It was like, man, the last thing I ever want to do is have to go tell him that it ain't working. That would break my heart worse than any monetary loss. So that's always the position and the posture we take is like, all right, cool. Like we're going to do it. Like, let's get a plan and do it right now,
And we'll get to the kind of growth retail excitement for the brand. The last thing on Boggy Creek is, so they bought the property, your capital partners. They're utilizing your intellect, your competency, all the kind of the culmination of last 8 years. Y'all are designing a lodge, building out like what that will look like. And is that like fee based, or is that like y'all have
we have a contract,
small part of equity in the deal?
Yeah, exactly.
We do.
Yeah, we get carry at the end of the, once everything's done, we'll get a percentage of the profit, and we have a contract to do all the work.
Cool.
So that's an exact number, and all that is, and everything we're doing is included in it. But it's a collective. It's kind of weird. I think about this all the time, and it's like you don't realize what you know until someone else doesn't.
That's right.
And it's like, it's not just the last 8 years. It's like our whole lives since we started. I mean, the idea of developing a product, it's like, well, these guys have zero clue how to even begin the process of doing that. And I can do it in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Just because I know it. And I didn't even realize I knew it until I went to do it. So there's tons of examples of that in this whole process of like, and it's a good way to think as you're developing your skill set throughout life. It's like, whatever it is you're doing, don't take it for granted that you probably know, you probably have a skill set or knowledge base that somebody else in that space doesn't, especially if you've done it for a long time. So, Aaron's done it since he was old enough to walk. JD's done it since he was old enough to walk. I was later in life getting into it, but I'm like, they know me this way, but like if I do something, I'm like all in to the extent that I got to know everything. I got to be like completely immersed in it, and I'll just do that with everything I'm interested in. So I made up for lost time in that way, but I mean, all that knowledge collectively, it's like when it comes to anywhere a duck or a goose is going to land, there ain't going to be very many questions that we can't answer, you know, as far as habitat or how to develop something. And the cool thing is now the lodging aspect of it and hospitality.
Yeah,
and all
another
that.
really cool part is this experience has allowed us to pull our whole team in year round now instead of seasonal work, which is hard. I mean, that's the hardest part of me, like buying myself the time to get where I got was filling the other 8 months of the year, you know, and I think everybody that does that in that world, whether that's guiding fly fishing or duck hunting or what it is, experiences that. So not only did it give us like a little breath of air, but it gave everybody an opportunity for growth in our organization, which is
That's right.
huge.
And there's guys that work with us that we knew we could not lose.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is just another way, another door that was opened up for us to be able to tell them, hey, we're not going to lose you.
Yeah.
Like, we got you all year, you know, and that was a huge blessing for them and for us, because now we don't, you know, I mean, we still risk they could go do something else or take over a lodge. But to be honest, there would be no hard feelings. And they mean a lot to us, and enough to where we're willing to take a little less to give them more to stay on, keep them around. So
cool.
It's been awesome.
So let's talk about kind of what's next for Fowlco. We've already talked about Boggy Creek, but capital partner comes in. Is that capital going to be used to launch products, or is that just kind of like, and how are y'all thinking about that? The brand has continued to grow on social media and just like, you know, country stars, whatever. just talk a little bit about that.
What part?
I mean, what's next for Fowlco? What are y'all excited about? I mean, the brand itself, like, really coming to life. How do y'all envision that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly it's all those things together. So, you know, if we decide to expand I think the major benefit is to expand the outfitting piece is just brand recognition, street cred. You know, we use that term a lot. It's like, well, you know, say we do end up, you know, developing on any kind of product. Well, if we're rolling it out, then it immediately should have street cred because we're doing it every single day that it's, you know, it's possible to do this one thing. So we have a pretty good understanding of like whatever that specific product is what it needs to be in any given environment to be as, you know, the best it can be. So it immediately gives the consumer confidence that whatever we're turning out in that space is something they can rely on. And so, you know, the outfitting piece, like I said, like we talked about earlier, I don't think we'll do another lodge where we're separating it all. And then on the, you know, it kind of on the real estate stuff, it gives it a launching pad because of the knowledge base. Yeah. And like if we look at a place collectively, say this place is legit, that ought to give a buyer or a member or whoever it is coming in full confidence that, you know, it's been vetted. You don't have to worry. This place is going to produce, and we're going to make it as good as we possibly can. And then on the retail stuff, it's kind of the same idea. You know, that theme is across the board through everything. You can put your stock in it. You know, it's like this is gonna, and we don't know right now. We don't know what all that's going to look like. You know, we have some ideas, but there's still a lot of stuff that's got to happen for that to come to fruition. But that's the next step. You know, I think we all agree that's like our next
100%.
move. Yeah.
And there's proof of concept there. I mean, didn't Banded start out of Arkansas? They
did start out of Arkansas. Yeah.
Or was that Chad? I think the original brand was Chad.
No, it was Chad Belding created the name
the
Banded,
brand, yeah.
And then Chuck Browning was the original from Arkansas that started
the clothing company.
The clothing company.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But you know, again, I think and not that they didn't hunt.
Sure.
I mean, Chuck Browning is an amazing hunter, an awesome human.
Yeah.
But you know, having a business that is centered around this culture, you know, does, like Josh said, gives the consumer a little confidence of it's. I mean, look at Phil Robertson. He's a perfect example.
Yeah.
He, you know, he's the real deal. That whole family's the real deal. Of course, they blew up on TV. But they blew up on TV because they're the real deal.
Yeah.
Right. That wasn't fake. That was organic, grassroots, what we call.
Yeah.
They were true to who they are, and the whole world needed to see it. And they did need to see it. And it was, taken really well and blew up. I'm not saying at all that's what's going to happen with us. But for us, releasing a product or doing something different in the expansion of our brand, we do have a base of people that do trust us because we've provided an experience and have shown our competence in this industry. So, that's what makes it exciting. Like Josh said, is fast forwarding a lot of maybe where other people started to prove that their product is good. Like we're able to hit fast forward on that a little bit.
Yeah, and if the lodge and our customers there are a microcosm of what the masses, how they would treat it, then it's like, because an example is when every single customer that we have, when they see us wearing if we're all wearing the same coat, there's one coat that we all wore for a while, and we sold I don't know how many of them through our retail store. It was like. We couldn't keep them. We couldn't keep them because they were all, well, if they're wearing them.
The company couldn't keep them.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like they were sold out of that jacket.
Yeah. So it's like that with anything. What kind of duck calls are y'all blowing? Like, what kind of shotguns are you shooting? What kind of chokes are you using? What kind of ammunition are you shooting? Well, I want that. I need that shell bag. I need those boots. Well, what kind of boots are those? So it's like, it's immediately like if they're using it, then it automatically must be the best. Because we're putting ourselves through the worst weather and the worst elements and day in and day out, it has to work. So, I mean, hopefully that same concept will apply to the masses when the time comes. And
that's how we feel. I mean, that's how we started out. There's been other companies that have offered us, good money to wear their stuff.
Sure.
But we've had to say, I'm sorry, but we've said from the beginning, we're going to use the best. Even though we might not get as good of a deal with that company because it's more expensive, we're going to use the best.
Yeah, or whatever we think is the best.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that's a matter of opinion, but
100% subjective, but like what we believe collectively is the best.
Do y'all have product experience, or does the capital partner that y'all brought on have product experience, or they're really just the capital and now y'all are kind of taking?
It's going to be that'll be a cumulative effort.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think any of us have delved into that market, the retail market much. My wife's been at Walmart for 25 years, so I may even have to ask her some of it. But yeah, I mean, it's, I think that the collective group of us will have the knowledge and the resources and find the people we need to fill any gaps we need to over time.
Throughout this whole deal, we've become such good friends with people that are really, really good at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that love us. And so, as far as like wisdom, but, to our new partners, they are brilliant. And like Josh said, they are very calculated in decisions and are really good at thinking through every angle of a deal or a product so there's going to be a lot of trust really both ways.
Yeah. I mean, we're still idea guys.
Yeah.
It's like me and Aaron, we talk JD every week about like, well, we could do this, but yeah, we could also do this, and we could do this, and we could do this, and it's like, well, the only thing we just don't have the money to do any of it, so we can talk about it till we're blue in the face. Well, finally, we're at a place where we've got someone who I think will take some chances, but it's the same thing that we talked about earlier. Is like we have to have a plan. Like if we're going to do something, we're going to have to beat the horse to death before we.
You got to know your for sure's.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, guys with venture capital, they don't want to typically don't want to take big risks unless they really, really believe in it, so, these guys in particular, this group they're going to do some serious due diligence before they spend a nickel on anything. And that's cool. I mean, they're going to ensure that it's going to work, to the extent they can. And I respect that and appreciate it. So it'll keep us from guys like me from just like throwing caution to the wind and going for it.
It's exciting though.
So kind of getting towards where we're wrapping up here. Two kind of wrap up questions. One, all of y'all, still live in Northwest Arkansas. You could be, I guess you could move to where the new venture is, or where the current Fowlco site is. Why do you choose to live here? Why do you choose to, keep your families here the remaining 8 months out of the year?
Yeah, well,
I mean, it's simple. It's clean, safe, prosperous. A lot of educated people around. I mean, it's a fantastic place to be. I think all three of us, maybe at our core of who we are, would go live in the middle of nowhere. But our families and the quality of life that we have here, I mean, that's not even an option to leave here in my eyes, personally.
To me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, like I have friends that have moved off to these incredible places and like they've moved back here. Mm-hmm. Like those places are cool to go to. Yeah. This is a great place to live.
Yeah.
And it's just true. I mean, I've lived and I did music for a long time and was blessed to tour all around the country and all over and really come back to this is where my wife and I wanted to live, and we went everywhere and got to do that. And this is just, it's amazing. The community here is amazing. There's a lot of really cool industry here. Everything that you would want in a big town is here, but you can escape it in an instant. You can get outside quickly, and there's not many places you can do that.
If you really want to like add it, tie Northwest Arkansas to Fowlco, I mean, a large percentage of our customer base is from Northwest Arkansas because Northwest Arkansas is a real melting pot of everyone from Arkansas and all the people from the Delta with the duck culture, transplants like myself and John David that moved up to this part of the world from the Southeast. They can go 3.5 hours down to Stuttgart. They can go 3.5 hours over to Oklahoma. And, over the years, the quality of the hunting down there overall has gone down. So, for us to be able to pull these people that are, like we talked about in the beginning, in the middle of two flyways and take them west and show them better hunting and a quality experience, it's Northwest Arkansas is crucial to that. Our relationships here to driving that for sure. It's allowed us to do it. Guys don't have a place to duck hunt here.
Yeah, they all thought we were crazy when we were asking them to come to North Central Oklahoma. But mine's easy, man. I was born at the old Washington Memorial on 71B, and I lived. It's a while that I can remember this. I lived in the first place we lived was an apartment complex below AQ Chicken in Springdale, and then I think the next place was Ball Street in Johnson. And then we moved to East Springdale. The first house my parents bought that they had to file bankruptcy over was across the railroad tracks in East Springdale on Crutcher Street. And then we moved to Ladon, which was over by the old Harps, catty corner to AQ. And then we moved to, from there, we moved to Huntsville Avenue in Springdale. And then we moved to Emma Avenue, just up from the high school. That's kind of where I lived the longest. And then my folks bought a house. I got married, moved to Bentonville, and my folks bought a house in Elm Springs, and now I live in Elm Springs. So my brother lives a half mile as a crow flies from me and his wife and two boys. And then my parents live another half mile away in Elm Springs. My sister, unfortunately, lives in Bryant. She's a doctor at Children's in Little Rock, and I wish they were up here. But my roots are too deep here, and I've watched it grow from 4 small farming communities to what it is now. And I hate the traffic. Guys from big cities think we gripe about traffic, and then rightly so. But, when you've born and raised here, it used to be zero. It was like we didn't have to worry about anything as far as that went. But it's been really cool. Overall, it's a net positive to see the industry move in. And the diversity of people and diversity of business and opportunity and all that stuff. I mean, it's kind of insulated. We're insulated from the rest of the world, especially in this corner of Arkansas, for a bunch of different reasons. Crime's low, opportunity's high, people are great. You still got kind of the old traditional Southern hospitality and culture, and I've been to every single state except for Hawaii and Maine. And I've never been anywhere that I was like, I could just stay right here. I always want to come home. So I love visiting everywhere. It's cool. the U.S. is a really cool place, and there's some beautiful places out west and all that. But no matter, it doesn't matter where I go, I'm ready to come back here. And so, yeah, no brainer for me to stay right here.
Wow,
That's awesome.
We ain't leaving.
Well, JD, Aaron, Josh, all of y'all, I want each of you to answer this question. How do you define success?
I define success with having the ability to wake up and do what you love to do every day, without jeopardizing the integrity of your family. I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people that have a whole lot of money. I do well, make a living, but I feel like I'm extremely successful because I've landed doing something that I absolutely love to do, and with a family that loves each other and is super tight.
That's awesome.
I think everybody's measure is different. You know, it's not, there's not one definition. It's different for everybody. I mean, I think it's a balance of provision for those that you got to provide for. I think it's definitely not, doing something out of pure necessity. If you can find something that fulfills you, and that can be a lot of different things. I mean, I think it's doing something that you don't hate, or finding something that you don't hate to provide. But, you know, there's people who make a ton of money and they can't get enough, and there's people who make very little and they're perfectly happy. I mean, there's lots of examples of people in my life that I've known over the course of my life that I would, you know, guy making $50,000 a year is just as happy or happier than the guy making $5 million. So it's never monetary. I don't think you can even apply, you know, a monetary number to success at all. So I think it's just a healthy family environment. It's a healthy family. It's a healthy, cohesive family unit. And then provision and doing something that in some way fulfills you. If you can check all three of those boxes, you're successful.
I don't know. Maybe for me, I don't know. Like maybe the entrepreneur in me won't let me define that. I don't know. To me, it's almost like if you think you're successful, that's kind of like a signal that like, you're done growing. And I don't know if I necessarily think that's a good, you know, entrepreneurial minded thing to be. You know, got to keep striving for greatness, even when you think you're hitting your head on the ceiling. There's an attic above that, you know. So that'd be hard for me to wrap my brain around.
It is a little tough because contentment is important too. And you know, my dad is a great example of that. He's one of the most content humans I've ever known, and not rich, worked every day of his life, and he's just perfectly happy because his family's healthy. He's got a roof over his head. He's got 3 squares a day. He doesn't want for anything, and that's a hard place for most of us to get to. But I would define that as success, you know, to some extent. If you can reach the point of contentment, but like Aaron said, I also agree with that. Like, you know, if you put a bar on it, or a moment, or a destination on the idea of it, you're going to stop when you get there. And so I think it's different for everybody. There's not one answer.
I think my father-in-law says this, and I love this. I think it's when desires, abilities, and opportunities align. When those things cross over, whatever that crosses to, I mean, that's like when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that's a quote. Success is when preparation meets opportunity. Yeah.
Well, cool. I'll wrap us up here. I think one of the things we like to do at the end of every episode is really share what we learned while we're sitting here with y'all. And then I think what our listeners are going to learn from a business perspective, from a personal perspective. And I think one of the first things, and we highlighted it really early on, is just presence. Like how important is that word in a world where we can be sitting here for 2 hours, 3 hours talking, or we could just be sitting on our phones and be totally unpresent with each other. And I think that matters. And you guys represented that well throughout the conversation with your families. That matters. it matters with your clients. And I think that's part of why y'all have been, use the word successful, like why your business has grown so much is because when people are at Fowlco, they are spending time with JD, with Aaron, and then with Josh, and y'all are present. And I just don't think in the hospitality world, I think it's a lot easier to say that than to do it, especially as technology's progressed. And so I think kudos to you guys and what y'all are building. And I think that's something that all of us can learn from y'all. I think the second thing is just hyper focused. You're really focused. And I think you highlighted, and one of the things when we talked with Andre at Onyx, I mean, when they're opening a new restaurant, they're like, they've got 5 different plates out. They're figuring out what plate will kind of match the vibe and the atmosphere. And you highlighted that really well. Every detail from when a guest wakes up and walks out of their room in the lodge to when y'all are dropping them off at a pit or a blind to coming home and to getting a home cooked meal, like all of that is dialed in and there's a ton of focus around it. And even hearing about what y'all plan to do with Boggy, like there's a lot of focus going into hey, how are we preparing this property and what do we want guests to get out of it? And then exciting, what's coming with the brand Fowlco and products, and just people trust you guys because you're really focused. There's and when you're successful, there's probably people who are like, hey, let's do this together. Like, we should do this. But y'all are like, no, we know birds. And like, that's what we're focused on. And we know experience and hospitality and delivering that. And y'all have just stayed really focused on that. And then I think the last one that's been really clear is purpose. All of you have deep purpose in what you're doing. And I think it's even cool hearing like some of the purpose is your relationship with each other. And y'all could go run 3 lodges and make 3 times as much. But y'all are like, man, we love getting to hang out and spend time together. That's part of what makes it special. And that also is what makes the client, that's what makes their experience special. And so I think there's deep purpose to what y'all are doing. And I think when you think about how businesses grow, like if you're hyper focused, if you're purposeful and you're present, like that's a recipe for a hyper growth business. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're trying to interview founders in Northwest Arkansas about businesses that have grown a ton and try to figure out why they're growing. And I think those are the biggest things we learn from y'all. I think those are the biggest things our guests will learn. And we're just really thankful for y'all's time. How can people reach out to you guys, find out more about Fowlco?
Yeah. Website's FowlcoOutfitters.com. Should be a link to join our, brand new website's about to roll out. So, there may be a little interim here, but, normally it pops up with an opportunity to join the mailing list, which is, anything that we have, any information we have to deliver, whether it's openings on our schedule or new offerings or whatever, all that goes on there. 8444 Fowlco is the company number, and it'll get to any of us. So pretty easy to get a hold of if anybody has questions or any wants to reach out to get on you're going to be on the waiting list trying to get in right now. That's just, standard operating procedure, but I like, I manage our calendar. So I really like, people to be on top of it. So if you're persistent enough, I'm probably going to bump you to the front of the line. Most guys that just wear me out kind of get bumped to the front. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. So otherwise you'll just get on the waiting list and you'll see dates as we have them open. We got a retail space on there, buy hats and t-shirts and hoodies and stickers and all that stuff. And hopefully that'll grow as time goes on. So.
Cool. Otherwise, just call us.
Yeah.
My phone number's on social media. Just call me directly. I like to make friends.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then obviously social media, Fowlco Outfitters.
Yeah.
So.
Fowlco_Outfitters on Instagram and Facebook. And we have a TikTok, but it's pretty small. So.
Well, thanks, guys.